The 67% of Europeans don't believe women have the skills needed to be scientists or to achieve high-level scientific positions. When asked for which fields women do post the right aptitude for, 89% of the people said anything but science. They all agreed that the social sciences, communication, and languages would be more appropriate for women.
When it comes to the topic of women in science, Marie Curie usually dominates the conversation. After all, she discovered two elements, radium and polonium, was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize in 1903, and was the first person to win a second Nobel in 1911. But Curie was not the first female scientist. Many other brilliant, dedicated and determined women have pursued science over the years.
Émilie du Châtelet, born in 1706 and died in 1749. Gabrielle Émilie Le Tourneur de Breteul, the daughter of the French court chief of protocol, married the Marquis du Châtelet in 1725. She lived the life of a courtier and bore 3 children, but at age 27 she began studying mathematics seriously and then branched into physics. This interest is justified as she began an affair with the philosopher Voltaire, who also had a love of science. Their scientific collaborations, they outfitted a laboratory at Du Châtelet's home, Château Désiré, and in a bit of a competition each entered an essay into a contest of the nature of fire. Neither won. Outlasted their romance. Du Châtelet's most lasting contribution to science was her French translation of Isaac Newton's Principia, which is still in use today. At age 43, she fell in love with a young military officer and became pregnant. She died following complications during the birth of their child.
Caroline Herschel was born in 1750 in Hanover, Germany. She was the Cinderella of the family. In 1772, she became a singer when she was following her organist brother William to England. When William switched careers and went to astronomy, she followed him too. In addition to assisting her brother in his observations and in the building of telescopes, Caroline became a brilliant astronomer in her own right, discovering new nebulae and star clusters. She was the first woman to discover a comet, and the first to have her work published by the Royal Society. She was also the first British woman to get paid for her scientific work. After William's death in 1822, Caroline retired to Hanover. There, she continued her astronomical work until she died in 1848 after receiving many honors in her field, including a gold medal from the Royal Astronomical Society.
Mary Anning was born in 1799. In 1811, Mary Anning's brother spotted what he thought was a crocodile skeleton in a seaside cliff near the family's Lyme Regis, England. He charged his 11-year-old sister with its recovery, and she eventually dug out a skull and 60 vertebrae, selling them to a private collector for £23. This find was no croc, though, and was eventually named Ichthyosaurus, the fish lizard. Thus began Anning's long career as a fossil hunter. In addition to Ichthyosaurus, she found possibly thousands of other fossils that helped scientists to draw a picture of the marine world 200 million to 140 million years ago during the Jurassic. She had little formal education and so taught herself anatomy, geology, paleontology, and scientific illustration.
Mary Somerville of Scotland focused on the study of algebra and mathematics to find her father's injunction against such pursuits. Her studies were sidetracked by a marriage, but after his husband's death, she became involved in intellectual circles, associating with people such as important writers and scientists of her age. She resumed her studies in math and science, and her next husband supported those efforts. After they moved to London, Mary became host to her own intellectual circle, which included astronomers and inventors. She began experimenting on magnetism and produced a series of writings on astronomy, chemistry, physics, and mathematics. She translated The Mechanism of Heavens, and although she wasn't satisfied with the result, it was used as a textbook for much of the next century. Somerville was one of the first two women, along with Caroline Herschel, to be named honorary members of the Royal Astronomical Society.
Lise Meitner, born in 1878 and died in 1968. When Lise Meitner finished school at age 14, she was barred from higher education, as were all girls in Austria. But, inspired by the discoveries of William Röntgen and Henri Becquerel, she was determined to study radioactivity. When she turned 21, women were finally allowed into Austrian universities. 2 years after tutoring preceded her enrollment at the University of Vienna. There, she excelled in maths and physics and earned her doctorate in 1906. Meitner made her way to Berlin. There, she collaborated with Otto Hahn on the study of radioactive elements. But as an Austrian Jewish woman, she was excluded from the main labs and lectures and allowed to work only in the basement. In 1912, the pair moved to a new university and Meitner had better lab facilities. Though their partnership was split up physically when she was forced to flee Nazi Germany in 1938, they continued to collaborate.
Irene Curie Joliot was born in 1897. She was the elder daughter of Pierre and Marie Curie and followed her parents' footsteps into the lab. She worked on the alpha rays of polonium, one of the two elements her mother discovered. In 1826, she married Frederick Joliot, one of her mother's assistants at the Radium Institute in Paris. Irene and Frederick continued their collaboration inside the laboratory, pursuing their research on the structure of the atom. In 1934, they discovered artificial radioactivity, and they received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry the next year. All those years working with radioactivity were harmful for them, and Irene died of leukemia in 1956.
Barbara McClintock was born in 1902. While studying botany at Cornell University in the 20s, she got her first taste of genetics and was hooked. As she earned her undergraduate and graduate degrees and moved into postdoctoral work, she pioneered the study of genetics of maize, corn, cells. She pursued her research at universities in California, Missouri, and Germany before finding a permanent home at Cold Spring Harbor in New York. It was there that, after observing the patterns of coloration of maize kernels over regeneration of plants, she determines that genes could move within and between chromosomes. The finding didn't fit in with conventional thinking on genetics and was largely ignored. McClintock began studying the origins of maize in South America. But after improved molecular techniques that became available in the 70s and early 80s, confirmed her theory, and these jumping genes were found in microorganisms, insects, and even humans. McClintock was awarded the Lasker Prize in 1981 and Nobel Prize in 1983.
Dorothy Crowfoot, Hodgkin after her marriage, was born in Cairo to a pair of British archaeologists. She was sent home to England for school, where she was one of only 2 girls who were allowed to study chemistry with the boys. At the age of 18, she enrolled in one of Oxford's women's colleges and studied chemistry. Then she moved to Cambridge to study X-ray crystallography, a type of imaging that uses X-rays to determine a molecule's three-dimensional structure. She went back to Oxford, where she would spend most of her working life teaching chemistry and using X-ray crystallography to study interesting biological molecules. She spent years perfecting this technique, for which she was awarded a Nobel Prize in 1864. She determined the structures of penicillin, vitamin B12, and insulin.